1. And we are live. I guess I don't need a mic. Oh, is the mic on?
Yes.
Can y'all hear me? Is it? Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay, my bad. Sorry, people watching on the interwebs. Hi, I am Lex. I am the worship leader here at Metropolitan Community Church, and I am co-leading this gender and pronouns workshop with
James Rice III. I'm the Assistant Director of Programs and Services for Time Out Youth.
And I wanted to do this workshop because Pride is coming up, and I know last year in particular I got more questions about different sexualities and flags, but I figured if nothing else, gender is something relatively new that people are starting to learn more about. So figured why not have a workshop about it so we can be more educated and find out who we might see at Pride later. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any comments, James? Or?
Let's do it.
All right, cool. Alrighty, let's start the presentation. Ready? So, Queer Vocabulary 101. Next slide, please. As I said before, we're going to be talking about gender and different pronouns. Alrighty, so gender, can't see it on that monitor, so I'm going to segue over here a little bit. It's a bit of a complex definition, so gender is the complex interrelationship between three dimensions: our physical body, our experience of our own body, how society genders bodies, and how others interact with us based on our own body. Our identity, key the gender or the mental portion, if you will, our deeply held internal sense of self as male, female, a blend of both, or neither, or who we internally know ourselves to be. And expression, how we present our gender in the world and how society, culture, community, and family perceive, interact with, and try to shape our gender. Gender expression is also related to gender roles and how society uses those roles to try and enforce conformity to current gender norms. Is anyone else confused after reading that definition? Okay, cool. Well, we do have a simplified version, I guess, if you will, with the next slide. Sorry.
It's okay.
Thought I had the gender unicorn there.
It's all right. We'll make it work.
We'll just go right into gender terminology. So, James, I'm going to let you handle the first one.
Thank you. Actually, if we can go back one slide just for a moment, just to recap that. So gender, when we talk about it as a definition or understanding it, is this three-way, Holy Trinity, three of you right here, right there. See? Yes, there's all signs. James Rice III. You see what's happening here? These are all good signs, right? All right, between your body and what the medical world has told you when you were born, your body, between your identity and between the expression or what you're putting outward to the world. It's just the simplest version of that. What your body has, what you've been told about your body and your biology, what you understand and know to be real between your ears, and then the clothes and the things that you put on to express. That is the full definition of gender. All those parts interconnected and working together. That's the simplified version. So having that as a base, we're going to go through some general terms and phrases as you're dealing with the trans identities and the trans community or the LGBT community in general, some words and phrases that you should be familiar with. We do not expect you to be an expert. You won't be an expert in an hour, but you're going to have a firm understanding, okay? Awesome. Let's do it. It's okay. What's the roll?
Maybe. Might be me. Not sure.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay. So, anybody want to take a guess? Transgender. Anybody want to guess what it means?
What trans means move or change.
Exactly right. Exactly right. We'll hit it one more time. So, I mean, that's brilliant, right? You just break down the word. Trans, we know that means some type of transition or movement through gender, right? So, transgender. If we hit it, the definitions will pop up. There you go. So, a person that does not exclusively identify with the gender they were assigned at birth. You came out of the mother's womb, you were born into the world, the doctor said, you are blank. Whatever that doctor said at that point in time, right? And then, to be transgender means whatever doctor said, you are a blank, walk to the world blank. You moved or transitioned to the other blank, or something else. We'll talk about that later. Okay, next one. All right, cisgender. So if we have transgender, just like we have hot, we have cold. There's an opposite word for everything. And one of the words that is becoming more and more relevant and more prevalent is this idea of cisgender, because we say trans people all the time. Oh, trans this, trans that, trans that. So what's the opposite of being trans? Cis. That's it. Don't make it hard. Don't make it complicated. If you do not identify as a trans person, you are a cisgendered person. Boom, you have a title now. I tell people it's the same thing like when we say straight. Straight only exists as a counter-reaction to gay, because we don't want to say normal. Everybody's normal. You're a human that walks on the earth, so you're normal or regular. All right? If you're not trans, you're cisgendered. Yes?
So what's the prefix cis? Where does that come from?
You know what? A really, really smart person named O'Neill Atkinson, my director, he broke this down on Friday, and I have already forgotten because I've been working that many hours. So I do not know off the top of my head, and I cannot, I will not embarrass myself and try to express that right now, but I can ask Google for you, Rev, by the end of the session. I'll make sure I can figure that out for you. All right, good deal. We'll go to the next one. Birth assignment, the assignment or classification of people, male, female, intersex, or another sex assigned at birth, often based on external and internal genitalia, chromosomes, and hormones present at birth. So we think of birth assignments really, really strictly in a binary idea, right? Two-way system, as either you were born a male or you were born a female. But 1 in every 100,000 births actually is an intersex birth. I think, is intersex on our list? Yes. So we'll talk about that in just a second. To talk about commonality, it is more common than people with red hair and a little bit less common than twins popping up in birth. It's just, yeah, wow, right? And it's really common. It's more common than people actually understand or will give credit to. So let's talk about that word. So in other words, birth assignment is whenever you came out of the womb, doctor said, hey, this is what you are. And sometimes gender is not only just the external organs that are present, it talks about internal organs and talks about chromosomes that exist in that test as soon as you were born. So that's where we move into our next word, which is intersex, a person with a less common combination of hormones, chromosomes, and anatomy that are used to assign sex at birth. The most common way people relate to this word is with a very outdated word that we will not use outside of this training. The term was hermaphrodite. We do not use that word anymore. That is a very terrible word. You should not use that with people. But that's the closest word that is common that helps people to understand intersex. All intersex means is that there was something either in your external organs that was uncommon. It wasn't just one part. It was a combination of parts or double parts or multiple parts or some malfunction there. Or it was something genetic in the combination of hormones or chromosomes that showed up in your DNA makeup when you were brought into this world. So if we know that there are people being born in this other category, why is it so hard for us to understand trans people? Because we have scientific evidence that babies are not being born in the world just male and female, that there's this other, there's this column, this intersex column, where it's some combination or some mismatch or something lacking or something missing, because sometimes there's things missing. Sometimes it's a human being that's born that does not have ovaries but has that external part. Technical definition of female, if you did not have those ovaries, you are not a female. Technical biological definition. They belong in the intersex category. Oftentimes with intersex folks, they are never told until they have medical complications later on as an adult, because the parents at the time of that birth must pick a box. So this is what we mean by birth assignment. We have now scientifically proven that you are assigned a birth when you come into this world, because those who are in this other column, naturally occurring, God's baby to this earth, fresh out the womb, do not fit in these two boxes, and the parents must then decide what box are we going to put them in. What if they get it wrong? It's happened. Intersex people, there's videos and clips of intersex people talking about that, they came out and said, you are going to be Adam, and Adam develops parts later on in life and realizes, I'm Alicia. But the parents had to make the determination to put them in a box, right?
Socially, physically.
He's getting it. Exactly right, because with gender comes all these other boxes. Outside of that, comes gender roles, your identities, what you should be doing. You should be taking out the trash and wearing blue because you're a boy. But if you're a girl, you should have flowers and your balloons are going to be pink when you get to the hospital, right? It's a boy. It's a girl. Does it ever say it's a human?
No. That'd be lovely if you did, but
Wouldn't it be lovely?
Yeah.
But it doesn't. So when you rake it all the way down and you think about all these different levels, that gender, from the day that gender is discovered, your whole life is planned out for you. And it may even end up being an intersex birth. So then what's the next word? Dyadic. If you're not intersex, you're dyadic. Simple. Don't overcomplicate it. Majority of people may fall under the dyadic word. And the last one. Yep, sorry.
So what exactly does that mean?
You weren't born intersex. You're dyadic.
So you're either male or female?
No. It just means that your birth was normal. Quotation marks.
Yeah, so basically all the chromosomes, genitalia, everything
well,
that you
in
have
that sense,
physically
yes.
matches up with either male or female.
Yes.
There isn't any blend or complications, I guess, if you will.
Correct. Biologically speaking.
Yeah.
Purely biological.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right. Thank you, because you're right. And last one, transition. We talked about, we talked about this. In other words, this process of transitioning. Transition looks different for every single human that walks on this earth. As my brother here, what was your name? Tony. As Tony was saying, it's more than just the physical stuff. It's all these social things that are attached to this idea of gender. So if there's all these social things that are attached to gender, so a part of transitioning can also be a social transition. In LGBTQ communities, in our LGBTQ understanding, the one thing that makes you a trans person is between your ears. That's part of the social transition. You don't have to change anything on your physical appearance or body for us to put you where you identify as. That's why we call it your identity. All we are saying in the LGBTQ community is whatever you identify as, that is what you are. God bless you and have a great life. It's not really complicated. It's not something that's, whoa, mind-blowing. I asked you your name. What did you say? Did I question it? I said, okay, Tony. Now, he might look like a Peter to me. From all indications to me, this is Peter. This should be Peter.
Hi, Peter.
Right. And when I call you Peter, and I say, hey, Peter, how do you feel? There you go. Do you have any relation to Peter? Do you feel any value to Peter? Do you feel like a Peter? No? And you're pretty sure that you're Tony, right? How do you know that you're Tony?
Third in a long line of Tony.
So am I. Third in the long line of James. I like this guy. I really like this guy.
Again with that number 3 thing.
Number 3, I'm telling you, it's all around us, right?
Yeah.
So that is exactly what a trans person feels. You're calling me a boy. I'm not a boy. I'm not. I'm a girl. You're calling me a girl. I'm a boy. I don't have any relation to this female name that you've given me. I have no ties to it. You're calling me this. That's what we call body dysphoria, which we don't get into in this presentation. So let me reel it back in. I get a little riled up sometimes, all right?
Can I actually tag on to what you were saying?
Uh-huh.
In addition to trans and cisgender people, there's also another category that isn't on here that is non-binary, which basically just means it's outside of the binary norms of male or female. Technically, that is also my identity, and this is where pronouns can really help because non-binary people don't always want to identify as like an other pronoun like they, them. They can still use he, him, she, her, and it really just depends on how they feel. Like what James said, however you see yourself is how you should be respected. So, yeah.
Clap for you. Right.
Thank you.
Identity. We'll go to the next slide. So trans woman, a person who is assigned male at birth but identifies as a woman. A trans man, a person who is assigned female at birth but identifies as a man. It's all about identity. That's really all it is, my friends. We see our wonderful, beautiful Laverne Cox on the cover of Time magazine, and we say that she's the best and worst example. And why? Not because of anything about her personality or the work that she does, but best and worst. Best example because she's recognizable. People understand who she is. They get her backstory. Like, oh, okay, I get it. Trans woman, great. Worst because everybody is not afforded this privilege to have surgery and cosmetic design to look like Laverne. But that makes them no less trans. My young people, whether they're struggling with homelessness, poverty, or joblessness at the center, they can't afford to go get the surgeries to look like this. I don't deny them of their identity. This is a privilege. This is a privilege to be able to look this way. Okay? Everybody doesn't have that, but that doesn't make them any less. For I have nothing but trans boys right now. One of the things that always happens with trans is we all go to trans women. That is everybody's immediate thought. And that should tell you something, that we are in a patriarchal society, because the only concern that you all have is about trans women. Trans men are a thing. They are humans that walk the earth and walk among us, okay? So we have to expand our own understanding of the trans community and include trans men, please. Okay, my trans boys at the center, they all can't afford to have top surgery. I don't disrespect them and make them feel any less like a man. I address them with sir. How you doing? One of them calls me son. Calls me dad. I call him son. Well, because they don't have the money to do any cosmetic work does not make them less their identity. It's affirming that identity. Next slide. Wonderful. So, it's okay. It's all right. Exactly what our friend was talking about. People, so non-binary. All right, so you have, what is binary? Binary, two, right? We know that already. So your two-way system. Gender is thought of in the United States in a binary way. The reason why I say the United States is because if you look at other countries and certain other tribes, that is not a thing. There are 3 genders, 4 genders, some have 12. It's all over the map. Go ahead.
Indian culture.
Yes.
Folks that work with Indian, they have this third gender.
Mm-hmm.
It's very accepted.
Yep.
Acceptable. They recognize it, but it's not in a lot of other cultures. But in Indian culture, they do recognize this third gender. And also that's a lot as well.
Mm-hmm. In Native American tribes as well, the two-spirit identity. Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So now we've just dispelled myth number 2. Myth number 1 was that there was no biological basis for transition or this other identity, and now culturally, there's no basis for all this. Yes, there is. 3 of you, just gave me 3 examples, of 3 other 3 identities. You just did it. So you've already proved. So now we've proven biologically and socially that there's something outside of the 2 or binary system, and that can either be identified as somebody who is trans or somebody who is non-binary. I don't fit into either. I'm a human that walks on the earth. Okay, and I tell people there's 2 ways to think about non-binary ideas. You can think of it as male, female, non-binary, or stay with me. You can think of it as male, female, non-binary. It depends on the human. Some non-binary,
including male and female?
outside of. Some male, female, non-binary, right in the middle, combination, blend, for some individuals, male, female, outside of. That's non-binary. And it depends on the individual. Some may say, well, I feel attributes of both, so non-binary. And some say, I don't feel attributes of either. Or some combination of either of those 2. And go ahead.
Personal example, I just like to tell people my gender is a series of question marks, because I don't know. It's just kind of what it is. I'm human. So
Lexi has said, I identify as non-binary. What does that mean for you all? Do you now have to treat Lexi any differently than before? No, and I keep saying Lexi instead of Lexa. I'm so sorry. No, you don't. There's one thing that we would like for you to change. We'll talk about that in the coming slide. But outside of that, they're still a human. They're still here. They're not any mystical creatures. Ashes are going to
I mean, I am
fly
pretty
or
magical,
anything.
but you know.
Well, right. They still love the Lord and still worship the Lord, and those gifts and talents are still there. That did not change. Okay? Non-binary person. Not all non-binary people identify as trans. Some folks identify because they are non-binary. They do identify as trans and feel like that's a part of their transition. Other folks do not. Again, that's up to the human being that's talking at that moment. It really honestly doesn't matter in terms of how, if that individual identifies as trans or not trans. You just need to know what to address that individual as and respect that identity. Make sense? Awesome. Y'all got it. It's not hard. Next one. Okay, dated terminology. I love this slide because this is some terms, depending on what generation you're from, you might be familiar with some of these terms, And what I will say about these terms is that language is generational, right? It changes from generation to generation. There's some language that's going to be acceptable if you're a millennial, that if the baby boomer generation heard it, they'd be like, oh, you said what? Right? The prime example of that in the LGBTQ community is that Q, that queer word, right? For a certain segment of our population, queer was a slur. You call me what? That's fighting words. Fisticuffs, right? And then for our younger generation right now, queer is the word. Everybody's using it. So some of this stuff is dated terminology. Transsexual. We already talked about trans, moving, transition, trans and moving or transitioning in sexuality. This was an old word. A lot of folks do not use that. We have elevated the conversation beyond sex because even in that word, it's still sex. It's solely limiting a trans person's identity to what's happening in the bedroom. That's one of the reasons why this word is no longer existing. Gender is more than what's happening in the bedroom. Myth number 3. Gender has everything to do with what's happening in the bedroom. No, it's not. Because you have men that participate that have ED, cannot perform. You have women who are barren, cannot perform in that way. You have different medical diseases. So if gender was solely about what's happening in the bedroom, then what is the gender of all those folks that are suffering from those diseases? Can't solely be based on that. So that means that, oh, well, we got to elevate that idea now. It's not solely about what's based in the bedroom. It's everything. How you dress, how you act, how you speak, how you address yourself, how others address you, how you see yourself, all those things. So it's beyond just sex. So, however, for an older generation, there may be an individual who still uses this word to refer to themselves, and if that is how they refer to themselves, go for it. But we will not use this typically in the modern era. Follow me? Okay, next one, pre-op, post-op, non-op. All of this is putting emphasis on what? That's it. It's really disgusting when you think about it. You're saying that this person has you're only interested in what's happening. You don't care about anything else. That's all this terminology does. Lowers the conversation, de-elevates the conversation. Transvestite. If you watch Rocky Picture Horror Show, sweet transvestite. All right, right?
Actual Transylvania.
There you go, right? So do we now pick up Rocky Horror Picture Show and throw it out the way because it uses these terms? No, because that's the terminology that was used. That is how those people identify. Transvestite, that word is closest to the word cross-dresser or someone who just vests, right, vestilles. So all it is transitioning clothing, that expression for those individuals. They may identify as one particular gender and has been that gender and will always be that gender, and they just like to wear different types of clothes. So sometimes transvestite is the word that's used. And then the last two really just I highlight or identify the transition. But why use all that? Trans man, trans woman. You don't have to say female to male, male to female. This is my female to male friend. No. We don't have to say all that because, again, the emphasis on all this is where they came from to where they're at now. That doesn't matter. We are focused at where they are at now. Reverend, does God care about your past? Yeah, right. But he's focused on what you did on that day that you repent, right? So it can't be where you came from. It's where they're at right now. That's what we're talking about. Okay? Next slide. This is the gender unicorn that we were talking about earlier. Aren't they cute? Isn't the gender unicorn cute? The gender unicorn does not have a gender on purpose, and that's why we use the unicorn, because unicorns don't have genders. Guess what else doesn't have a gender? The spirit. I asked Lex this. I said, do spirits have genders? We characterize God as he. Now, Pastor, correct, I don't want to preach blasphemy in your house. So if I'm out the book, I will take my comments back. But as we understand what a spirit is do spirits have a gender?
Some people can, instead of saying Father,
Mm-hmm.
some people want something Mother or the Creator, something,
Neutral.
Yeah, something neutral,
Gender neutral. Look at that. Our Creator's gender neutral word. I don't know how to use gender neutral language. Yes, you do.
It seems to me, I'm Native American, so out of that community, that's how the word is.
There you go. There you go, right? So, the unicorn and spirit, if it's really a spirit, doesn't have a body, can't really have a gender, might be characterized as such, but not necessarily a gender. Just think about it, pray on it, meditate on it, and then follow your pastor's guidance. If he gets up on Sunday and say, hey, y'all, what James said, I don't know if I follow your pastor, that's the shepherd of this flock, and the blood will not be on James' hands. That's your pastor. Okay. Okay, so with the gender unicorn, so you remember that long, convoluted definition that we started with? That was on purpose. This is the simplified version of that. Gender identity, okay, gender expression, sex assigned at birth, and these last two really get into sexuality. Sexually attracted to, and then romantically, emotionally attracted to. So let's break this down. And you can see the corresponding parts on the unicorn to what you see on the line. So gender identity, you see the rainbow, and then the rainbow is coming out of the unicorn's head. Gender identity, what you think here, what you identify here, between your ears. That is what that gender identity is. Hi, my name is James. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a boy. I am a male. I identify as male. Have always wanted to be a man. Love being a man. Okay? Gender expression is how we're dressing up this clay. We ain't nothing but dirt, right? Right, Reverend? Okay? We ain't nothing but dirt. So my gender expression is how I'm dressing the dirt up. Gender identity is what I'm naming the dirt. Gender expression is how I'm dressing your old dirt up. That's it. So, one of my alternate personalities, Lady J, when she whirls into the room with her hair and her 6-inch heels, James is still a boy. That's the character. That's makeup. Right? Actors and actresses, they do it all the time. They play these roles, these characters. They're putting that on. That's an expression. It didn't change Scarlett Johansson. It didn't change Brad Pitt. They're still those people. They just played a character or a role. So that's a part of an expression. And notice that all these things are on a sliding scale. It's a sliding scale. You can be anywhere on these lines or in these planes. So my expression is just the clothes I decided to wear today. That could be decided more masculine, or that can be decidedly more feminine for that particular day. It didn't necessarily change my identity. Or it may have. And the next one, sex assigned at birth. You see where this little character image is? This is talking about between the legs. So identity, the rainbow there, expression, what's on the outside, and then sex assigned at birth, what was between the legs of the biological component of that human that's walking. And then the last two more have to do with sexuality, sexually attracted to, or that physical attraction, right? And then romantically, emotional. We talk about those three kinds of love. Oh, there's that three again, right? All right, am I in the book? Those three kinds of love, right? So you know who you are sexually attracted to, and then you know who you're romantically attracted to. This also calls into the identity of asexuality. Those asexual individuals are individuals who say they don't have a sexual attraction to other human beings, or that is not a deciding factor for them. They're more romantically, emotionally. Okay? There are things that you will not do with grandma that you will do with your partner. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, right? There are things that you will not do with grandma, and do you love grandma and your partner equally? Okay. Yeah, for the most part. Right? Okay. So that just proves those different kinds of love right there. Okay? All right, next slide. You want me to keep going? You want to take it from here?
I'll take it from here.
There you go.
So that leaves us, we talked about gender. Now how people want to be referred to is pronouns. Basically, words that refer to a person other than their name. He, she, they are probably the most common pronouns. There are some buttons on the table in front of you. They have like different pronoun identities that some of the kids from Time Out Youth have made and want to be referred to as. But if you don't know what someone's pronoun is, just ask. It's not offensive. Honestly, it's more of a sign of respect if you care about that person's identity, how they want to be perceived and seen in the world. And that would also help them feel better and be more welcome, especially at a church if we do that here, because they could be told all kinds of things out here. Especially in God's house, they don't need to be told that in here too. So asking someone's pronouns, again, is important because we can't always tell what pronouns people prefer by looking at them. today I'm outwardly more feminine, still non-binary. It's really just a conversation, basically. And if you misgender or use the wrong pronoun for someone, quickly correct yourself and move on. Everybody makes mistakes. The important thing is for us to just keep going on and continue to respect the individual. So, do you have anything you wanted to add, James? Or?
Yeah, I think you've summed it up exactly right. You're just referring to people how they want to be referred. Don't get lost in this.
So I have a quick question.
Yeah.
You know, for someone who wouldn't want to offend
Mhm.
anybody, right?
Mhm.
I wouldn't know if somebody wants to be referred to as something other than what they're what they're physically presented to me.
Yes.
I wouldn't know.
And guess how you find out something?
Yeah.
There you
How
exactly
I
right.
didn't even ask. Go ahead.
Just like this. Hi, my name is James. Hey, I use he, him pronouns. What pronouns do you use?
Lex, say them.
Nice to meet you, Lex.
You too.
Okay. That's surely not everyday conversation.
It's
Guess
definitely
what?
not.
Guess what? When you make the change, if this is what you desire, right? Because you have to desire that this is the environment that you want to create. All right? And it's not easy. We just said that. That it's not an easy transition because we have not been socially conditioned to do it this way.
Right. Just not in the normal
Exactly.
lexicon.
But if you were to walk in the doors of Timeout Youth, every single person introduces themselves. So it can be, that culture can be established. It is up to you to decide, is this the culture that we will establish here? Is this an environment that we want to establish here? I'm not here to judge whether you should or you shouldn't. I'm here to give you the information, and you make the judgment for you and what's right for your church and your faith community. All right? So, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, I was just going to make a comment, since I went through the timeout training or whatever, I mean, and even myself, before I went through the training, I found it so easy just to base it on appearance only. Somebody looks, like I've got a transgender friend that may come into my house one day with a dress and the next day a pair of sweatpants. She's still transgender. She's just presenting to the world that day in sweatpants. And that's where people kind of get confused and, okay, what's going on? She's still transgender. She just presented to the world today in sweatpants. That's it.
That's what.
You're
Go ahead.
hung up on the appearance. It's not about the appearance. It's about what's going on in there.
Right.
It is a little disconcerting. There's someone I know who appears feminine. But he says constantly, whenever introduced to you, I prefer he, him pronouns. But you're looking at what you're seeing appears as female. Not feminine, female.
Yeah.
But prefers to use, and that can get, especially if you're in an animated discussion, and it's clicking right along, and
So, Tony. I didn't know him before I walked in today. His name is Tony.
use your tongue.
Yeah. I'm not going to follow you up, Pastor. Not going to follow you up, Pastor. Not going to follow you up, Pastor. 10 points, though. 10 points. That's good. That's good. But, right, before I walked in today, I didn't know Tony. How hard was it for me to say Tony? I'm not calling him any other name. I'm not identifying him anywhere else. I didn't ask what his pronouns are. That is me making an assumption in that part. But in terms of me just meeting this person, so if somebody introduced you, hey, I'm Lex, I use they, them, why we get so hung up on that? You didn't have an issue when they said Lex is this child's name. So they, them is the pronouns. He can look like Peter all day long. His name is Tony. I didn't have a problem accepting that. I didn't question it. Your name is Tony. Do you use he, him pronouns, Tony? Yes. There you go. He uses he, him pronouns. Lex is using they, them pronouns. Ever since they told me, which was news to me today, I've now started using they, them. And one of the convenient things about the pen is more for the world's convenience, to help them understand, right? So all I will do is say, Right. And again, that's a part of a culture, right? If you desire to make that, and that is, it. Not, again, I'm not here to say what's necessary or not necessary, because you have to do what works in your space, right? You have to do what works in your space. But if a friend, and I'm talking about intimate relationships, and when you first meet a person, it may be troubling at first or hard at first, but the whole point of this is to say when you approach somebody, identify them the way they tell you to identify them. Don't make any assumptions. If you always start off with assuming best intentions and coming and viewing as this is my fellow sibling in Christ, or looking at it through God's love, if we had to put a church spin on it, that as when God looked at that child, said, you are Lex, that's all that mattered to God. So when I meet you and you shake my hand and you say, okay, you know what, my name is Jamisha and I use she, her pronouns. Y'all can see James all day. But I confided in you. I trusted. Because remember, every time the privilege that you all and everyone, they fall into a non-binary category, but a privilege that anybody that does not identify as non-binary or trans in this space has is you never have to tell anybody. Every time a trans person speaks, they have to come out over and over. How many times do they have to explain it? And so, don't you think that there's probably some times where they say, you know what, I'm not going to explain it with this person. You drive up to the drive-thru, yes, ma'am, and you're just like, not going to fight. They thought I was whatever. So if they confide in you and take that extra step to say, you know, I actually do prefer these pronouns, and this is how I identify. That showed a level of love and trust and respect. And I think we honor and uplift that person. If that's our jobs as Christian people on the earth is to honor and uplift our siblings, then we should honor that and take that, you know what, I'm happy that you trusted me enough to share that information with me. You have shared that information with other people, and other people rejected you for it. But I'm here to love you. We could turn that around and say that sin that you confessed, other people rejected it for you, rejected you because of that sin. But God says, I love you. So that identity that you're sharing with me, other people have rejected you for it. But I'm telling you, I love you. And I accept you as you are. If Christ accepts us as the dirty, filthy people that we are when we come to this cross, we can accept somebody when they give us their name and pronouns. Oh, there it is.
And to kind of...
a work in progress for me, too, that I'm trying to get past the appearance and actually see the person on the inside.
There you go.
To kind of piggyback off of that, I know something big for my generation is kind of like how boys are kind of growing up with the stigma. It's just like, oh, you can't wear makeup or you can't wear dresses. Like, that's something that's really changing in my generation. Like, there are even hashtags like, let boys wear makeup or whatever they are. I'm not that much of a millennial. I don't know what the exact hashtags are, but stuff like that. Like, if girls want to outwardly dress more masculine or feminine, because clothes are just clothes. Mm-hmm. Like, society kind of dictates which articles of clothing are more masculine or feminine. Because back in the day in Europe, men were wearing skirts. And now, so in our culture, more so, skirts are more feminine. It really just all depends on the culture, the people, the time, place, all that.
These were all social constructs that were decided before we got here. We were brought into a world and told, you are a boy, you like blue, this is how you should act, this is how you should dress. It was all decided. This is only called table because the generations before us said table. If we talk about the Adam and Eve story, we talk about Adam naming all the animals, it got that name because it was named as such. God spoke and it was. Okay? All right. So these are just different types of pronouns. She, her, hers, he, him, his, they, them, theirs. The last one, do not get hung up on it. Do not get hung up on it. O'Neill talks about all the time, he's only met 3 people that use this set of pronouns. This is just an alternate pronoun, ze, theirs, hers, hers. It is just an alternate pronoun. You will 9 times out of 10 not occur an individual using these pronouns. But when you do, you say, great, friend, how can I use that information? Tell me more about that pronoun use. Give me an example. I'm going to feel appreciated. A trans or non-binary individual is going to feel more valued if you ask, because that shows me you care and you want to be right. You're showing me I care and I love you enough that I don't want to hurt you or offend you, so I care to learn more than just, okay, cool, and go about my business. So if you get someone that falls out of the she, he, and they, which, again, those are the most common, most individuals are going to stay in that realm. But if you get somebody that's outside that realm with something else, just say, okay, tell me how to use that. Tell me how I can use that in a sentence. And I'll make sure that I use it that way. When you go to another country and you've learned the language, tell me how to say this word. Okay, got it. You practice it. You stumble, but you keep going. But you accept it. Next one. Did I miss anything? No. On that part? Okay, great. And then the last thing I would just say is going back into my closing thought and conclusion is going back to the culture. It is up to you to decide what culture you will have in your sanctuary at your church. There is certain things that will work at Time Out Youth because we're a bubble. We're meant to be a safe space. So there are things that we are going to do at Time Out Youth that do not apply to your church and your sanctuary. But you can make what's the right decision for you. You can make the decision that if you have that visitor's card that somebody might fill out on their first time here, does it have a place that says pronoun? That's a simple change. Easy, simple change. In your emails, one of the things, everybody that works at Time Out Youth, their email signature line says their pronouns right at the bottom. The smallest line in the signature line. It's the last piece of information. But that small change on your church email will let that person on the receiving end, guess what? If they are trans or non-binary, they are going to see that. They're going to see that and be like, he gets it. This is somebody that is trying or is making, I know that, and now I immediately feel safe. Think of how many places these people, these trans individuals or non-binary individuals are going looking for safety, love, and support. And even if it's that one email, y'all never talk again, I know that that person's safe. They at least are trying to understand who I am. I feel love. I feel acceptance. I feel safe in his arms when I'm with this individual. And so taking those small little steps, those small little changes, can mean all the world, mean all the difference, right? Once we have a habit when we step up here, brothers and sisters, what did we just say? God's children. You use non-gender language all the time. You're just not realizing. You're not realizing you've made the change. God's children, beloved, non-gendered language. Child of God, how are you feeling today? Oh, I'm doing well, Pastor. You use non-gendered language right there. So all you have to do to be inclusive is stop and think. That's it. It's not no big magical wand or anything. It's just stopping and thinking, and most of all, identify people the way they ask to be identified. If you can do that, you will garner respect, you will garner honor, and you will garner love with that individual. Questions about anything that we talked about tonight? Yeah.
And think about this whole thing. Everybody has a right to self-identify.
Yes.
That's my primary thought about this whole thing. I think about it from like an ethnic standpoint, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's some color.
Mm-hmm.
Colored, black, African American.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's actually what is it? Black African American right now? What do we call it?
Mm-hmm.
One word to show you something.
Right.
Yeah.
But that I just said we all have a right to self-identify.
Yes.
And that's what this is. It's just pushing that a little bit further than what people are used to.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Right. You brought up a beautiful point in that, right? It's the difference between race and ethnicity. You don't know my okay. Did you feel that? You felt that one, Lex? Yeah. All right. It's the difference between okay. You can see my race or assume from what you see, but you don't know my ethnicity. I got to tell you that. So you can perceive a person's gender, but you don't know their gender. You can perceive their sex. You don't know their gender until they tell you. Same exact thing. I don't know that he's a Native American until he told me that. All I can do is assume, well, he's a person of color at least. I'm going to go with black because I always look for the black man in the room, right? So, right. Well, how would I know that unless I ask? That's a perfect example right there. I assume, oh, he black. Oh, Native American and African American, or some combination of both. So same as that thing. Very good point. Any other questions?
Another comment is it comes down to loving your neighbor. It's about respect and treating them openly and opening up the door for a relationship.
Yes.
Because as soon as you go into pronouns, as soon as you go into and broaden that understanding, that you were just talking about gender and race, you're opening a relationship.
Yes.
And that comes out of loving your neighbor.
That'll preach right there. My daddy had a saying, that'll preach. That'll preach right there, and you're exactly right. I'm going to love you just the way you are when you walk through that door. I'm going to establish a sense in this space that this is a space of acceptance. And you know what? I don't know what you have going on, and I don't care what you have going on. I know that God loves you, and I'm here to make sure that you understand the love that God has for you, that he sent somebody to die for you, and that you can have eternal life if you accept him in your heart. There was nothing in that. Okay, I got an amen for the pastor. Woo! That's how you know you made it in the world, right? But that's the good news. And the good news was never gendered. Go ye therefore and teach all nations. All of them. The nations of the trans folks. That's a nation. Now you're prepping yourself to preach to a new nation. You're prepping yourself to welcome a new nation in. Come ye. See what the Father has for you in this place. We ain't going there. We'll have church in a minute. Any final comments? All right, Lex, back to you.
Questions, concerns? Okay, cool. Well, that is all we had for this presentation. So thank y'all for coming. And thank you, James, definitely for agreeing to do all this.
No problem.
Couldn't have done it without you, but yeah.
Well, you know. You could have won it.
It would have been an awkward flight.
It's all right.
But yeah.
And invite me back anytime. I'm happy to come back anytime that you need a breakdown session or what's what. And Pastor, if you say, you know what, there's some members here that I needed here tonight that weren't here, and we need to do it again, you just let me know, and I'll put it on my schedule.
We're going to put this on our website.
Mm-hmm.
And have that available to anybody. And hopefully people will watch it and come back to it, watch it again, together.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing for the millennial generation,
Yeah.
and the generations close to that. It's another thing for us old spirits.
Oh, ye generation of vipers.
But this is challenging. Because it was never anything that you looked at. You made general assumptions, and it was easy. There was no thought to it. There was no respect to it. You just went along with the norm. Everything had to have a norm. And it's difficult to make that transition.
Yeah.
But once you start working with it.
Yeah, that's that gospel song. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it.
Oh, was that Sophie Winans?
Yeah. Might have to sing that next Sunday, okay? It wasn't easy, but it was worth it.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's an ongoing conversation. And another gender identity, sorry, not trying to bog y'all down with new terms, but there's another gender identity called gender fluid. And the fluidity of that person's gender could change moment to moment or day to day. However, it just means that maybe one day they identify as female, the next day it's male, next day it could be in between. It's fluid, it fluctuates. So that's why just talking to them, checking in on them, seeing how they're feeling, what they want to be identified as that day, that moment, however, it's fine.
So gender fluid isn't used in your car steering?
Can we get the pastor out, please?
Yes.
Going on to that 3 thing. I think that's the 3rd time I've been done with him today.
Right. 3, right? Said gender fluid is not what you put in your power steering. I am so done. I want you to know I'm taking that. I'm going to openly confess before the Father that I am taking that from him. I can't find the gender fluid. Can you? Can you help me find that? I think it's right next to the lighter fluid.
So done.
Yes.
We really do need to pray for Lex because she has to deal with this all the time.
It's all right.
I'm done with him at least once for like interaction.
And now you have someone to practice with. Now you can use they, them pronouns right there. Lex has trusted us and entrusted us with this information, and now we're going to say, you know what, I love Lex, and so I'm going to try my best to honor this identity that I just learned about this human tonight. And this human is God's child, and I love God's children, and I'm going to say they, them, because, boom, they got that button on now. And you'll make the transition. You got it. And feel free to have a button for you. If you see one that relates to you, feel free. Or leave them around for other folks, and they'll say, oh, this is pretty cool. Y'all got button pronouns? And guess what? It can be very normal because after that individual comes in and says, hey, I'm a trans man, great. Treat him like every other fella. Men's worship. They will be at men's Bible study. Great. Done. That's the other part of making it normal is that you just say, okay, great. Boom. Never have to have a conversation again. It's over. It's understood if we keep on rolling with life. I'll see you at men's group.
Well, you know, actually, and that's something that MCC moved away from in the beginning. We don't have men's Bible study.
Good. I was going to make that
study.
suggestion.
We don't have a men's group. We don't have a women's group. Everything is all people are welcome.
Yes. He who hath an ear, let him hear. That's it. Good. That's so good. All right, Rev. Here we go.